Thank you for joining us tonight for our webinar called Your Conversation Matters. So I think the reason why you are attending this webinar is that you are passionate about inspiring positive change, and that's the reason that why you are here to attend the webinar. There's no doubt about your passion to bring about change, but I think the bigger question is, what kind of change are you offering to the people that you're working with? We want change that is deep. We want change that is sustainable. And this is what this webinar is all about. It's all about you taking advantage of a basic vehicle that is almost available to everyone. That is conversations. And how that conversation, the conversation that you had with people can make a difference. So we want to take a look at today how you as a leader can take a full advantage of your conversations. Okay, so we are all here because change matters. And what we want you to be able to do is to have that change agility. Well, we prefer to be flexible. We want to be more adaptive. And we all recognize the fact that in today's working environment, everything is so complex. So much change is happening almost every moment. And therefore, it requires a little bit flexibility on our part. And, my personal gym trainer always tell me, Ben, you love to do all the heavy lifting, but you don't forget that you need to learn to you need to stretch so that your muscles can grow. Okay, so in many ways, as we mature, that is that need for us to be flexible. Well, mainly because our mind, is a our mind loves to save resources for us, and as a way to do that, our mind constantly and unconsciously actually automated a lot of process so that we don't have to think about it. Well, if those processes that the mind has automated serve us in creating good habit that is serving and habits that allow us to achieve our goal, that is fine. But often or not, we are caught mindlessly in doing things that doesn't serve us, and we are unconscious about that. So the mind, to a certain extent, as we grow, when we get so used in a certain way of doing things, it actually causes us to be a little bit less flexible. Okay, so today we want to talk about how you, as a leader, can learn to stretch those muscles and allow change to happen more organically within you. And the change that we want to talk about today, the change that you can bring about today, is going to be in the workplace context. So we are going to talk about making change in a workplace context with you playing the role as a leader or a manager responsible to lead a team of people, or you have direct reports working under you. Okay. Now, there is we are not denying the fact that as a leader, we are responsible to achieve results. That's the non-compromising commitments that leaders pledges themselves to their organization. And to a certain extent, that is true because as a leader, as a as a leader of an organization, being a good steward means that I take responsibility of the resources that has been entrusted to me and turn those resources into result to serve the organization. So therefore, we are not saying that as a leader, we compromise on result. We had to hold steadfast to help the organization to achieve the result. The question that we want to explore today is, okay, so what are those factors that needs to be present in order for me as a leader to bring results to the organization? Well, certainly there are many factors, but one of the factors that I can think about immediately is performance. The ability to do something effectively certainly helps to bring greater results. Fair, we all understand that. Now, what if we will take a little bit closer look at if performance brings about greater result? My curiosity is therefore, then what are the factors that needs to be present in order for people to do things better or effectively in a workplace context? Well, certainly one of the factors that really strike my mind or come to my mind is engagement. And it sounds pretty quite obvious. The more people are engaged in the things that they are doing, they will strive to want to do it better, more efficiently, more effectively. So work engagement indirectly help them to want to do their job effectively and efficiently. Well, if that is true, I would like to invite you to take one more closer look at this formula. If engagement increases people performance level that brings about greater result, what might be the factors that needs to be present in order to increase more engagement? And that's where the focus point of today's webinar is all about. One of the factors that I can think about easily right now for managers in workplace that will help them to increase the work engagements of the people that they are leading is the relationship that the manager had with their team members. Now, we often hear this saying back in Singapore or in Asia that people don't leave their organizations. People leave their bosses. Well, there's quite a lot of truth to think about in that saying. It again emphasizes the critical role of that relationship between the manager and that and the people that they are leading. A solid, trusting relationship certainly encourage work engagement to happen more rapidly, therefore brings about greater effectiveness in the way they're doing things, that brings them to achieve greater results. Now, if relationship is the fundamental building blocks of a workplace engagement, my curiosity is to investigate further what factors needs to be present in order for the manager and the team to enjoy a trusting relationship. Just like we growing plants, okay, what do we need to grow in order to have that solid trusting relationship? And one of the things that you can use to grow that strong trusting relationship is conversation. Now think about that. The conversation between you and your direct report either create a winning team or it actually breaks the team. So one of the strongest connecting track among them is the quality of relationship that manager builds with the team and the effectiveness and impact they have, all based on the kind of conversation they are planning to have with their team. I found a very interesting quotation from a book that I came across by Robin. He says, "Never mind the bosses." In one of his statements, and I'm going to quote it for you, okay, because I think that statement shared some truth and wisdoms in the way how leaders is going to have the kind of conversation with their team members. It says here that the way we talk to one another in organization is a critical differentiator of success. Why? And he offers us a very logical explanation. He says that leaders cast long shadows and they introduce patterns of discourse, which is basically the way they carry out the conversation, that give permissions for others to adopt the same habit through an adult to an adult discourse. Now, Robin uses the word adult to an adult to describe the kind of conversation that he envisioned to have happened in the workplace. I would like to see that adult to that adult conversation as the leader having a collaborative style or adopt a collaborative approach in having a different kind of conversation with their team members. Okay, so this kind of conversation we might properly this kind of conversation that properly and appropriately confront the issues that needs to be addressed so that we can avoid the negative consequences of allowing issue to fester and blame to grow. And so what's the bottom line? The bottom line is leadership is a conversation. That's the bottom line. And we all know great leaders are great communicators. Not only do they share with them the visions, but they also bring them to achieve the vision. And it is that process of bringing them to the vision that transact via the conversation that makes leaders need to pay special attention on how they carry out their conversation with their direct reports. And with that, it brings me to the highlight of today's presentation. Okay, intention. All of us has good intention, and I believe leaders have good intentions in their heart of heart when they have good intention. But the point here is that having a good intention is great, but it is not enough because intention needs to be supported by a good execution. As a leader, you see certain things, you meant certain things to be good for your direct report. But the point here is that it is not about the content. It's never about the content. It's about how the content is brought across to your team members. And here, I want to use a metaphor to help you to understand this part. Imagine with me flying an aeroplane. It's all about landing the plane. Okay? Good intention, poor execution is like a plane that is not landed properly on the airport. It just crashed. So we had to now to be very, very mindful that when we had a good intention, we had a good intent, how do we bring that across? How would that message land for our people in such a way that it will have an impact? So having a good intention is great, but it is not enough. And that's why today we want to be able to help you who have made an extra effort to join us for this presentation, to be able to walk away with something practical to apply it in your workplace conversation with your staff. Okay? Before I do that, I would like to share with you a very simple formula, which I find it very, very useful. And in my years of working with my corporate clients, coaching leaders and helping them to be not just a good leader, but a great leader, I can't deny, I know it is so clear that their ability to communicate, to their team members is often or not the barrier to their growth opportunity. And one of the things that I love to be able to support leaders in workplace is to help them to gain awareness. Now let's take a look at this formula E plus R equals to O. E is the event, events, that the circumstances that surround us. Well, often or not, leaders are often leaders are often at the front line of the battle, you know, responding to things, attending to the things that they have to take charge when things happen. So there will be events or situations or circumstances that impacted them. So those are external circumstances. Hopefully, leaders learn to respond and not react. No, there is a world of difference between responding and react. When we react, often than not, we the behavior comes out from I wouldn't want to use a word that I wanted to use that word so loosely, but I would like to sort of say that often than not, we act mindlessly. That means we don't consider what we want to do before we actually act upon it. Well, if those automated response serve the bigger needs, then fair enough. It is a good it's a good response, even though we are reacting upon it. But what if we could have a second chance to consider before we actually take an take an action on it? So when we are bombarded with an external event, leaders can therefore choose how they will want to respond. They either choose to respond or they can choose to react. Whatever actions that they take, it will always produce an outcome. And the question is that outcome the best outcome you can envision? And I like to share this metaphor to the leaders when I was working with them on a one-to-one level, is that life is like a gamble. It's up to you to choose how you're going to bet for it. We never know. That is the point. We never know how the outcome will turn out to be. However, you can choose how you're going to position yourself. And that will require a certain degree of awareness from the leader. A kind of awareness in terms of them being able to catch themselves before they actually act upon it. And that's where Daniel Kahneman actually, advocates the concept of strong emotional intelligence. Now, I'm not sure about what is your understanding about emotional intelligence, but certainly when we say EQ, we're not talking about just about the emotional feeling. Daniel Kahneman's greater contributions to the whole understanding of emotional intelligence lies around the piece around the self-awareness piece, the ability for us to notice our thought process and our emotions, and therefore having the choicefulness to learn how to regulate it. In other words, we have the capacity not to have those thoughts and feelings to own us, but we own our thought and our feeling. Personal awareness. Now, the moment we are able to achieve the acute level of self-awareness, the events that is happening either internally or externally to us will not propel us to react, but we will then choose to respond, allowing us to tap onto our rich experience, our own wisdom that we have gathered from those experiences to decide what choice of action, in this case, in a conversational manner, the choice of words that we use and the way we structured our choice, the way we structured our language, so that when this whole package lands onto on the recipient, we know that it will land on a good soil that will produce a good fruits. That's the outcome. So that's the leadership response that we need to consider here. Now, we had said earlier on that conversation leadership is conversation. And now we understand the leadership response. We can then put the two together and then consider what you as a leader can do differently right now to turn the conversation that you have, which is basically the primary vehicles between you and your direct report. Whatever that you want to do through your team, transact via that conversation that you had with them. Okay, so right now I'm going to combine the two factors together and share with you practical takeaway that you can apply it into your workplace context. And this takeaway is called the practice of inquiry. It's another way of saying asking questions, but I liked inquiry more than asking questions because inquiry has that invitation. It's like it embraces the mindset of curiosity, not one of authority. I'm questioning you. I'm asking you from an authority point from an authority voice. No, I'm inquiring. It shows a partnership of a co-sharing of power between two entities. Inquiring, the practice of inquiry. And I think that's one of the hallmark of an effective leader. That is, leader lead by asking questions. Well, trust me, we have come to 21st century where there's so many things to know and we can't possibly know everything. It's not like 20, 30 years ago where information are so inaccessible. I will not say inaccessible, but relatively compared to where we are here today, leaders has all that information inside them, and therefore our direct report has to listen up to us. But in today technology, so much abundant of information that it is not possible for leaders to know everything. And therefore, one of the art of leadership is to be able to bring about all the resources together. And that requires us to learn how to draw out from our team members. So that's the practice of inquiry. It allows us, it provides leaders tools for asking powerful questions and powerful and insightful questions in your conversations. Now, the beauty of inquiry is that it is both focused and yet inviting. It it has a capacity to direct the mind to where attention is required, and also at the same time, it opens the mind and facilitates learning. In order to appreciate the beauty of the practice of inquiry, I like to share an example so that you can see objectively and concretely how the application does makes a difference in the way the conversation lands for our direct report. Now, this is a very harmless statement that a good leader with well-intended motive would like to say to his direct report or her direct reports, especially during year-end performance or during feedback sessions, as a way to motivate and encourage them to continue to aim for the results. So a statement like this, you are not hitting the mark in the area that you're responsible for. Now, I'm not, let's assume that even with the nicest tone of voice, you know, consider how this will land for you if you heard this from your from your leader. You are not hitting the mark in the area that you're responsible for. Connect to the psychological impact that you had within you. What kind of impact has it had for you when you receive this statement, even though it comes out from a well-intended, good motive leader who desire is there to support you? How will that impact it or change the way you are feeling and thinking. Lock onto that feeling, because in the next moment right now, I'm going to offer you another perspective of doing the same thing, but using in the practice of inquiry. Okay? So with that, let me share with you, what do you think you might be experienced differently if this is the kind of response you get from your leader instinct? How well you are progressing towards the goal. Pause and listen. Let them talk. And from that response, the leader continue on with this change of thought, continue on in this direction. So what is working? Pause, listen. Great. So what is holding us back, or what is holding you back? Listen, pause, and then, so what needs our attention here, or what needs your attention here? Two different kind of conversation. I'm just using just one segment of a conversation to highlight how a conversation can make a difference here. Even though the destination is the same, but the journey is certainly very different. So that's the power of inquiry that changes the way you had it changes the way the conversation will land for people. And that's where one of the things that get me very excited here is to be able to support leaders in workplace to lead using the practice of inquiry, leading with questioning. Okay? The more we are able to use questions, the more we are able to shape and change the way the conversation feels for people. And in closing here, I'm going to offer you a little bit more sophisticated framework that you can actually apply in your daily conversation with your direct report. And this is one segment of the training that we took from from a 2 days workshop where we trained leaders on how they can create authentic change by changing the way they have their conversation with their direct report. Okay, so I'm going to share a particular framework here for you so that you can walk back and apply it. Okay, in a starting off a conversation, okay, be inviting and not defensive. Now, how does that sound like? Well, you can use a very simple inquiry called "Tell me more about this" or "Tell me more about it." Remember, we want people to feel differently when they are being approached by a authority figure. And that's how trust and partnership can grow. Okay, so tell me more about this. It's a very good way of allowing people to feel that they're being invited. So practice this. Tell me more about this. Okay. Think about those times when you have your dates, your first date, your romantic first date. When you are so new to one another, what do you do? Oh, that's interesting. That's nice. Tell me more about this. Okay. So it creates that sparks of invitation. So in the same way, you can also incorporate that elements into your conversation, in a workplace conversation, by using the word "tell me more about this." You allow people to first have the space to contribute. Okay, people feel good if you let them talk first because they felt that they're being heard. Very simple things, but it does make a world of difference. Okay, so be inviting, not defensive, engaging, and not attacking. How does it sound like for you to be engaging in the conversation? One very simple inquiry practice that you can think of, that you can consider is, what make you think so? Practice this. Let people talk first. Tell me more about this. Then followed by, so what makes you think so? You allow them to state their positions. You give them that total space for them to be right about what they are thinking or doing. And that's inevitably helps to increase ownership that will bring about a greater level of engagement, because the people get to contribute here. They get to share what their thought process is. Think about you when you first started working in the corporate setting, where you are so committed to excel and to contribute, to do the very best for the organization. And there you have a leader who comes to you and say, what makes you think so? Share with me what's your thought process. Is another version to express it different, express the same, express this. Okay, so we have two here: inviting, be engaging, and the third one is that you check for your understanding after they have stated their case, their positions. You can check in with them by saying, "Am I correct that you are saying blah 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 blah?" And try not to repeat back the details, and if possible, practice chunking up, because leaders are expected to do bottom line thinking. So bottom line, what is it that they are expressing to you in a way that is direct, concise, and precise, so that your direct report gets to be supported in terms of their thinking process when you're able to chunk up the content for them. So am I correct? Now, that's the very good statement. Am I correct? We are not saying that you are correct, but you want to be proven wrong. That's the position that we're adopting. Am I correct that you are saying blah blah blah? It's a way of checking in with your direct report. The fourth one, as a leader, you get to state your position. It doesn't mean that being inviting, being collaborative means we accept everything that people say. We can then now, after you have checked in with what you think you have heard and understood from what they are saying, now is the time for you to state your position. And you can do that with this with this statement. Here is what I think, and there you make your offer. You offer your contributions to your direct report, so that there is that partnership to co-create perspective. Okay, and you are prepared to accept the fact that there is a way that might be higher than you, and you're very open to receive it, but you would like to be able to have your voice too being heard by your direct report. So this is best expressed by, here is what I think, and then you make your offering. And finally, as a way to engage them fully in terms of the ownership, you can ask for input based on what you have offered to them. You want to check out with them to see how that information land for them, and see how they actually respond to what you have said. And you can ask in a very simple questions like, so do you have a different information, or do you have a different perspective on this, or what is your perspective on what I just said? Or I'm very open to hear what you have to say, or what you think about what I offer to you. So you ask for input. And then finally, oh, so sorry, that's the last one, that is encourage different point of view, which I've just said earlier on. How else could we look at this? So this is a simple 6 frame conversation. It's not meant to be step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. They are what we call framework, building structure, with pillars to support the building to keep that stability. Okay, so and it contains 6 different frame. With the first one, be inviting, be engaging, checking for understanding, state your positions, ask for input, and encourage different point of view. Now, I would like you to just take a few moments to just think about the impact of having this kind of conversations with your employee. How would that land for them? What kind of changes will you be offering to them if you can lead using this way, using this approach of talking to them? And with that, it brings me to the last part of today's presentation, the practice of inquiry. It empowers people. Questions somehow has the capacity to open up our mind, cause us to think and look wider to come to a solution. Questions creates ownership because it causes me to think and it makes me search and reflect about what I plan to do or how am I thinking. And that moves people beyond passive acceptance of just what other people has to say to tapping onto their own wisdoms or their creative ability. So with that in mind, I hope you find today's webinar helpful and serving your needs as a leader. And I'm going to